Congressman Mark Pocan of Wisconsin, who was serving in his first term in the United States Congress, and all of a sudden he's about to take a very important vote. And also with us tonight, Jon Soltz of VoteVets.org, who heads up an organization that represents some 360,000 veterans in this country who have been in the Middle East. Congressman Pocan, you first. Do you think Republicans are opposing this action that the president wants to take against Syria because of their hatred for the president? Why all of a sudden are the Republicans against intervention?
Yeah, I think there are many Republicans who are opposing the president simply to oppose the president. These are the same people who support the sequester that when I asked a general in the Budget Committee if we are less prepared because of the sequester, I was told definitively yes. So they're weakening the military because of their budgetary policies. And in this case, though, like you said, they're not there on behalf of the military like they normally are. They just want to oppose the president. So it's there's some different messages of why this is happening. But you and I are looking at it from a very different perspective than they are.
Well, Congressman, if you take a look at what the Republicans are saying, it's very similar to what some Democrats are saying. Aren't they in somewhat of a political box here, the politics of all of this?
Well, for some of them, because they represent districts. They've had a hawkish behavior in the past. They've had voting records like that, but suddenly there's a change in opinion. I can just tell you from my perspective, I've gone to the classified briefing on Sunday. I spent an hour and a quarter on the phone with the Progressive Caucus and the White House Chief of Staff yesterday. I'm just not convinced that we've got enough information to tell us that this is the right thing to do. I don't think we've looked at every alternative other than a military strike. I don't think we've engaged the international community as we really need to. I just can't at this point support what the president's proposing. But I think the Republicans, there is a mix. Some people just want to get the president, and some people, maybe they're listening to their constituents, because I'm getting 15-to-1 people contacting us telling us don't get involved in Syria. Okay.
Jon Soltz, I want to ask you, are there any good players, any good scenarios that would come out of Syria if we attack them? And that's what it's going to be. I don't care if it's one cruise missile or 200. It's an attack.
Well, the administration is saying that they're not actually going to be involved in the civil war, but that's after we've already given weapons to the insurgents several months ago because they already crossed the red line. So they don't want to really go up decisively after Bashar Assad's most powerful military forces, which surround him in Damascus. So he's going to wake up the next day and he's still going to have the same alternative. So it's very complicated. If they tip the balance of the war, the insurgents, we know who these insurgents are. They fought us in Iraq. They killed elements of units that I trained in Iraq. And on the other side, on the Syrian regime side, you have Hezbollah troops who also were involved in Iraq fighting U.S. troops. So it's very complicated, and it's just not going to be decisive action and only further pull us in.
Okay, further pull us in. You think that a strike would pull us further into a conflict?
Absolutely, because it's not decisive. There's a 100% chance we're not going after chemical sites. So we've got to go after deliverables, Scud missiles, rocket launchers, artillery rounds. No-fly zone. He's just going to resupply. The question is, if you're really not going to hurt his hold operationally on his power, why is it going to scare him to deter him in the future?
Do you think there will be a reaction from Assad? Well, I mean, everybody thinks this is the calculus that no one can figure out exactly what the response will be.
Well, absolutely, because the most likely course of action of the insurgents is to try to exploit this and push forward operationally within their own war. So if the insurgents try to take advantage of these strikes where Bashar Assad's assets are kind of sporadic and spread out or in different locations, they could try to seize certain cities or certain terrain, and that will force a very strong response from the regime and further, escalate the conflict inside the country.
Congressman Pocan, that really is the intangible here. We do not know how to measure what kind of response Syria would give us, which could draw us into a greater conflict. What kind of answer are you looking for on that to get a yes vote?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the question that was asked on Sunday and I asked again yesterday is, what's the end game? I don't know if we have enough of an end game response to know what could happen. I was just at the Israeli-Syrian border at the beginning of August. I'm fearful that if we corner someone by doing something like this, the reaction comes back to our allies, to Israel, to Turkey. It could have something happen in the United States. I just think that there hasn't been enough discussed about what it means when we go in either unilaterally or close to unilaterally with a military strike and what the implications are. It's so important. People are so war-weary in my district. I have two nephews who luckily came back from Iraq. However, their families didn't continue. This is a huge vote. If you're going to do something that could have further implications and bring this country into war, that's something that we need to have an international debate about, and I don't think we've done that.
Well, let me ask you, what if there is a no vote and the president calls for strikes anyway? Where does that leave us?
I think that'd be a huge mistake.
Okay.
I think the president deserves enormous credit for coming to Congress, right? That hasn't happened because of George W. Bush and others. This is now setting a precedent for all future presidents, and he deserves respect for that.
John,
however, if he would do something with a no vote from Congress, big mistake.
Yeah. Jon Soltz, where are the veterans?
Our membership is 78% against, and there's a lot of veterans that I talk to that are Republican, to be frankly honest, or conservative or liberal or progressive. It doesn't matter. So many veterans, the biggest question is, hey, how many times did you go to Iraq? And if you say once, it's going to say, man, how'd you get so lucky? This is 10, 12 years of war now. People have been 2, 3 times. I think a lot of people are like, we've seen this show before.
But what do you say to the president who brings up the issue and the Secretary of State about it's a moral obligation and our image in the world?
I would ask him really one simple question, if I could talk to the president, and I would say, sir, you gave them weapons because they crossed the red line, and so they used the weapons again. So what are we going to do when they use chemicals next time? And what does that mean for our military? And in reality, the question is, what is the best course of action to eliminate their use of chemical weapons? Right now, this type of military operation doesn't do it. So what do you do the next time they cross the red line?
All right. Congressman Mark Pocan and also Jon Soltz, great to have both of you with us tonight. Appreciate your time.